We started this whole series talking about being a light worker. Well, now is the time to bring the light work to the forefront. And the light work this week is to listen. This light lesson may be arguably the most important one of them all. If there's anything that I've heard this week, it's listen, listen, listen. As you see, there's a little bird, of course. How could there not be? Again, this is the world according to Sierra. This is not the only way. I'm in the business of live theater. I am assuming that the audience is there to listen. I'm assuming that the audience is there to hear what we, the show, has to say. When I'm doing my concert work, I am really assuming that people are there to hear what I have to say and what I have to sing. I've never articulated it like this before, and remember, this is the world according to Sierra. But when I sing, I am in a constant cycle of listening. Yes, I have to check in with myself, but I have to check in with who I'm singing to. Before I walk on stage, every time before I sing, I ask, how may I serve? The reason I ask, how may I serve, is that it allows me to get off of myself. I hope that they're sold out. I hope that there's a bunch of people here. I hope that I remember this, 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 and this. No, if I'm there to serve, it's what do they need? What do you need? What do they need? That's my way of listening to you while you're there to hear me sing. So there's actually an exchange of energy of me listening to you while I'm singing and while you're listening to me. There's always a constant exchange of listening. We are called as human beings to listen to one another at the very least. There is an entire movement going on right now called Black Lives Matter. If you aren't listening, get to it. We have an opportunity to listen to people who have never been listened to before, but have been speaking and singing and calling out for years. We have an opportunity to hear. That is the most important thing right now. So for everybody asking, what do? I don't know what to do. It's not enough. I don't know. I don't know where to start. Start with listening. Nobody is born the same way. Nobody wakes up the same way. Nobody goes to sleep the same way. Nobody's days go exactly the same, even if you spent the entire day with someone. You still have your own thoughts, your own way of being, your own way of interpreting things. So it really is the most amazing gift to be able to listen. Now, how do we listen? Listen without judgment. Listen without coming up with the response that you're gonna already say. That's really tough. In conversation, we're oftentimes thinking of the next thing that we're gonna say, whatever they're saying that's sparking something in us that makes us wanna speak. What if you're listening to listen, not listening to respond? Another misconception about good listening is when we listen and go, oh, I understand that happened to me, and then we start going into our story. Even though we think we're saying, oh yes, I totally understand, I hear you, I understand, because. As soon as you say because, it's now become about you and your story. There's a time, of course there's a time for you and your story. This might not be it. This might be the time that you're listening to somebody else. So if we're going out into the world and our task is to listen, we should have a practice assignment. Again, it always goes back to this, but the practice assignment is to meditate. Let's choose to get quiet and hear all the voices that are talking to us constantly. The ego telling us you aren't enough, and the ego telling us you're the best thing that's ever been. It's never in between. It's always telling us at this end of the spectrum or this end of the spectrum. The art of meditation is the quieting of the mind. Again, world according to Sierra. When I am meditating, I am sitting with the intention to listen to the only voice that is worthy of being listened to. That voice is always speaking to us. The purpose, the soul, whatever it is that's within us that knows more than we do, we gotta listen to that. We're quieting the mind so that we can listen and hear. So it's not just listening to listen, it's listen to hear. Our Marination Station this week, I like this one. I hope that you do too. You know how people say, think twice before you speak? What if this week we listen twice before we speak? Sometimes when we listen once and listen again, we hear it. Then and only then do we hear it. It's worth listening twice before we speak. Listen once, listen again. Maybe don't need to say anything else. So that's our task. Listen. I have really enjoyed this week listening to people that I haven't heard from before, listening to people that I didn't even know about, listening to different perspectives, listening to the world people have lived in, the same planet, completely different worlds. It's worth listening. It's worth hearing. When you don't know what to do, listen. When you feel uncomfortable, listen. And not just listening to everybody around you, but listen to the knowing inside of you. There is a knowing. There's a knowing that might be telling you actually simply to listen. Where can you listen and where can you hear?